How I dealt with not affording live streaming gear. One of the biggest challenges new videographers and live streamers face is the fact that this industry is darn expensive. Sure, you could start simple, and that's what I encourage you to do, but I thought I'd share how I dealt with not affording video gear when I first started my business. For those of you that are new to the channel, I quit my job working at the Apple Store Genius Bar in May of 2013 to start my video production studio. At the time, I had never owned a business before, and I knew nothing about being successful as an entrepreneur. Okay, that last part was actually not 100% true, and here's why. Before I wound up working at Apple, I was the videographer and editor for a company called Glazer Kennedy Insider Circle, or GKIC for short. GKIC was based in Baltimore, my hometown, and taught business owners all over the globe copywriting techniques, outrageous marketing concepts, and more. So if you've ever seen companies like ClickFunnels with Russell Brunson, or Digital Marketer with Ryan Deiss, or maybe you've heard of Frank Kern, these guys were the original mentees that my boss worked with. He was their mentor. So from behind the camera, I absorbed a lot of information. Now back to the whole affording gear part. When I first left Apple, I needed a way to get my first camera, some lenses, and a few microphones. This wasn't easy because at the time, it probably added up to about $5,000 or $6,000 just to start. So I got creative with my first client, who happened to be my old boss. I came up with a quote for all of the work I was being asked to do, and then I made an estimate of all the gear I wanted to buy. From there, I proposed to my first client ever, what if you bought the gear and you get to write it off as a business expense, and then instead of paying me in cash, you can pay me in gear. They realized it was a bit out of the ordinary, but once they consulted their accountant and found out that it would work out just fine, they were in. That was how I got my start. But over time, I've learned there are other creative ways to get gear when you can't afford it. The first way I deal with not affording gear is by leveraging PayPal credit. I can buy up to $10,000 worth of gear and finance it interest-free for 6 months. Assuming I pay off everything in those 6 months, I won't have to pay any interest. That's been a huge tool for me anytime that I have a bigger purchase, and while I miss out on getting the rewards points on my credit card, I gain the freedom to pay a more expensive item off over time. The goal here is to make sure it's paid off within 6 months so you don't rack up interest. If you do, it's going to backdate the interest that you owe from the time you open up the line of credit. The second way I dealt with not affording gear was another creative financing method. Since I'm a Canon shooter, I buy Canon cameras, and they typically offer 12 or 24 months of interest-free financing. So when I bought my Canon C200 and my Canon C70, I was able to split up the payments to 24 equal payments, and if I wanted to pay it off early, which I always aim to do, I could simply call Canon Financial Services and ask for a payoff quote. Similar to Canon's offer, B&H Photo, where I buy a lot of products, offers their Paybu card, which gives you the option to save in sales tax, or you can choose special financing up to 12 months with a minimum purchase of $199 for 6 months or $599 minimum for 12 months. This gives you tons of flexibility, but again requires that you are betting on yourself to pay that back. These tools are obviously less risky when you have a more established business, but if you know that you have a deposit payment from a client and the other 50% is on the other side of that within a month or two, this can be a great way to spread the payments out and put more money back into your bank account. It's worth mentioning that Adorama also has a credit card called the Edge Card, and they offer 5% off all purchases or special financing on purchases over $199. So these are two really good options if you have a decent credit score and can get accepted. Now I've talked a bit about leveraging credit, and I'll offer one more option in a moment. But first, I know that some of you aren't a big fan of using credit, or perhaps you fall into the category of people that can't qualify for a card or simply just don't trust yourself with a credit card. If this is you, then it's a good idea to look into renting gear. I recommend checking out Borrow Lenses or Lens Rentals because you can rent a ton of cameras and live streaming equipment and simply bill the expense to the client. It's also a great way to try out new, more expensive gear to find out what you like with very little risk. They'll ship the gear to you with a prepaid label to send it back when you're done. Oh, and be sure to look into the description below for a $25 off coupon to use with Lens Rentals if you've never used them before. Disclaimer, if you use my link, I do get a small discount off my rentals too, but it costs you absolutely nothing. As time goes on and your business becomes more established, you may want to look into a business line of credit through your local bank or credit union. I was able to open up a $30,000 business line of credit with my local credit union, and this was pivotal in allowing me to pay out my contractors on bigger projects faster because I had access to the cash. I was able to leverage this line of credit when I needed to buy some pricier gear, and wanted to do it before the end of the year to tack on a few more business expenses and to save on my taxes. This also allowed me to build a relationship with my local credit union, build my business credit, and will later down the road help me out when I go back to them for more money to buy a new company car or anything of that nature. So as you can see, there are 3 solid ways to get creative in financing your gear, especially if you're just starting out and don't know how to get all the gear that you want. Whether it's being creative and working with a client on a trade or barter type deal, financing with a credit card or line of credit, or simply renting the gear and billing the expense to the client. There are ways to get the gear, and this shouldn't hold you back from further growing your business. Don't forget, I've got a link for you below in the description if you want that $25 credit towards renting gear, and as always, if you hit that like button and subscribe button, it really helps me out in growing my audience and getting this information into the hands of more live streamers around the globe. That's all for now. I'll see you next time.